stop scrolling. Because if your child has stopped telling you things, this is your first warning sign. Children don't suddenly go quiet. They shut down when something inside them breaks. When your reactions start feeling unsafe. When your presence feels unpredictable. Silence is not peace, it's a message. And if you don't catch it now, that silence becomes distance, and that distance becomes damage. When a child stops sharing things with you, it's easy for parents to feel hurt, frustrated, or even rejected. But the truth is, their silence is rarely about disrespect or defiance. Most of the time, it's a defense mechanism. Children naturally look to their parents for guidance, support, and understanding. When they sense judgment, anger, or disappointment, even if it's subtle, they begin to retreat inward. They stop volunteering information, not because they want to push you away, but because they are trying to protect themselves from emotional discomfort. Silence becomes their way of controlling what you know, shielding their inner world from reactions that might feel unpredictable or unsafe. Parents often misinterpret this quietness as a sign that the child is hiding things because they are doing something wrong or rebelling. In reality, it's often the opposite. They are doing what children do naturally when they feel vulnerable. They are being cautious. They are trying to navigate the delicate balance of seeking connection while avoiding pain. Every parent has, at some point, raised their voice, dismissed a concern, or reacted in a way that made their child feel small or misunderstood. And even a single moment like that can create a lingering fear in a child's mind. If I tell them, will it upset them? Will they be disappointed? Will I be punished? Over time, these small moments accumulate, creating an invisible wall between parent and child. It's also important to remember that children are highly intuitive. They pick up on tone, body language, and subtle expressions more than we often realize. Even when words are gentle, a fleeting look of irritation, a sigh, or a raised eyebrow can communicate disapproval louder than anything said out loud. To a child, these cues matter more than the actual words. So when they stop sharing, it's often their way of protecting themselves from potential judgment or criticism. They are learning that keeping certain things to themselves is safer than risking emotional hurt. Another factor is the desire for autonomy. As children grow, they naturally crave more independence. When combined with fear of judgment, this need for autonomy can manifest as selective silence. They might share parts of their day or their successes, but the things that feel uncertain, embarrassing, or shameful are the first to be kept private. Parents sometimes interpret this as defiance or secrecy, but it's really a reflection of a child's self-preservation instincts. They are testing boundaries, learning what is safe to share, and gradually understanding how to navigate relationships in a way that feels secure. Understanding this is crucial because it changes how parents respond. Responding with anger, frustration, or guilt can reinforce their protective silence. On the other hand, approaching them with patience, empathy, and calm curiosity opens the door to reconnection. The goal is to make your child feel that no matter what they share, even mistakes, fears, or messy feelings, they will not be met with rejection or anger. Their silence is not permanent, it is a signal. It is an invitation for you to adjust your approach, create emotional safety, and rebuild trust. When you begin to see silence this way, you stop taking it personally and start seeing it as communication in its own form. It is your child telling you that they need understanding, not judgment. Every parent has the power to transform this quiet defense into a bridge for conversation. It takes awareness, patience, and the willingness to meet them where they are, without forcing words or reactions. Silence is not a threat. It is a message, And if you listen carefully, it tells you exactly what your child needs most: safety, empathy, and unconditional acceptance. When it comes to children, how you say something often matters far more than what you actually say. A child's perception of your tone can shape their entire willingness to open up. Even when words are gentle or well-intentioned, a harsh tone, a sharp sigh, or a hint of impatience can send a child retreating into silence. Kids are incredibly sensitive to emotional cues. They don't just hear the words, they feel the emotion behind them. One raised voice, one moment of frustration, can leave a lasting impression that makes them think twice before sharing anything personal again. Over time, children start to associate honesty and openness with fear of disappointment or anger, which gradually teaches them to filter what they reveal, or worse, to stop sharing entirely. It's not just overt anger that causes this. Even subtle shifts in tone or body language can signal disapproval. A quiet, disappointed tone when a child tells a story, or a sigh of frustration when they share a mistake, communicates far more than words ever could. Children interpret these signals as judgment, and they internalize the lesson that their feelings, struggles, and experiences might not be safe to share. In their minds, it becomes a calculated risk. Do I really want to tell them this? Will it make things worse? Silence becomes their chosen path of safety, a shield against emotional pain they fear may follow openness. Parents often underestimate the impact of tone because they focus on content instead of delivery. They think, "I didn't say anything wrong." But children remember how it felt more than the literal words. A moment of irritation can outweigh 1,000 kind words, creating emotional friction that drives a wedge between parent and child. The child doesn't consciously plan to distance themselves. It's a gradual process. Each misread tone, each impatient response, each subtle expression of disapproval chips away at the sense of emotional safety, until eventually, sharing stops altogether. The ripple effects of this are profound. When children feel that tone and emotion determine their safety, they begin to self-censor. They hide thoughts, fears, and even achievements that they worry might be judged or dismissed. They may start telling only the safe things, simple facts, surface-level details, while withholding deeper feelings, struggles, or questions. This selective communication is often mistaken by parents as disinterest or rebellion, when in reality it is a protective response to feeling emotionally unsafe. Children are trying to navigate a world where they still want connection, but are learning to guard themselves from potential hurt. Another dimension is that children mirror emotional energy. If a parent is anxious, frustrated, or reactive, a child instinctively adapts to that energy. They learn to anticipate your reactions before you even speak. Over time, this conditioning teaches them that silence is safer than honesty. The lessons are subtle but persistent. Sharing can trigger negative responses. Silence avoids conflict, and emotional safety requires careful observation of moods and tones. As a result, children become adept at reading between the lines, sharing selectively, and ultimately withdrawing when they feel a storm may be brewing. Understanding the weight of tone is empowering for parents because it shows that building trust is about more than just asking questions. It's about creating an environment where honesty feels safe, where mistakes are met with calm guidance instead of frustration, and where emotions are modeled in a way that doesn't intimidate. When parents pay attention to how they communicate, not just what they communicate, they can dismantle the walls that silence builds. By responding gently, listening actively, and maintaining composure even when discussing difficult topics, parents can reinforce the message that openness is welcomed and protected. Children crave this kind of emotional consistency. They want to know that no matter what they say, their parents' response will not tear them down or make them feel ashamed. Tone shapes that expectation more than anything else. When children feel understood, not judged, they start to trust that sharing their thoughts will not lead to punishment, disappointment, or anger. Over time, consistent, empathetic communication breaks down barriers, restores connection, and replaces silence with conversation, showing that emotional safety is built not just on words, but on how they are expressed. A child's willingness to share is deeply tied to the sense of emotional safety they feel at home. When a child hesitates to speak, it often reflects an environment where they don't feel fully seen, heard, or understood. Emotional safety is the invisible foundation of every open and trusting relationship. Without it, even the simplest questions can feel like traps, and ordinary conversations can feel like tests. Children are constantly assessing whether it's safe to express their thoughts, fears, and feelings. If they sense judgment, criticism, or indifference, they naturally withdraw. This is not stubbornness, it is survival. They learn that silence protects them from potential harm. Children are highly perceptive, often noticing things that adults may overlook. A casual dismissive comment, a tone of impatience, or even a lack of attention when they speak can communicate disinterest or disapproval. These small signals accumulate over time, creating a sense that their inner world is unwelcome or unsafe. When children feel unsafe, they do what feels natural. They retreat into themselves. They might still respond to questions or engage in surface-level conversation, but the deeper, more personal thoughts and feelings are kept locked away. The home, which should be their safe haven, instead becomes a place where they feel they must carefully navigate every word. It's also important to recognize that emotional safety isn't only about avoiding negativity. It's about actively creating an environment where children feel valued, validated, and understood. They need to know that their emotions are legitimate, that their mistakes are part of learning, and that their successes are celebrated without judgment. Children crave connection, but connection requires trust. If they fear criticism or rejection, they will protect themselves by holding back. This can start subtly, hesitating to share small frustrations, not volunteering personal achievements, or avoiding conversations about challenges. But over time, this pattern can grow into full-blown emotional distance. Parents often underestimate the power of this subtle withdrawal. It can feel like a phase, a quirk, or disinterest, but in reality, it's a warning signal. Emotional walls are being built, and once constructed, they are much harder to dismantle. Children are not naturally secretive. They become secretive when their environment tells them that honesty carries risk. Every dismissive reaction, every rushed conversation, every moment of emotional unavailability teaches them to protect themselves with silence. The child's mind learns that keeping feelings private is safer than sharing them, and over time, this can affect not only their relationship with you, but also their ability to trust and communicate in other relationships outside the family. Another dimension of emotional safety is consistency. Children need to know that no matter what they share, their feelings will be met with steady, supportive responses. If a parent reacts inconsistently, sometimes calm, sometimes angry, it creates uncertainty and anxiety. They begin to walk on eggshells, carefully choosing what to reveal and what to hide. They may test boundaries, offer selective information, or retreat entirely. This isn't about manipulation. It's a natural, protective response to an unpredictable emotional environment. Creating emotional safety requires intentionality. It means listening without judgment, responding without anger, and showing empathy even when their feelings seem small or trivial. It's about demonstrating through actions and tone that sharing is not just tolerated. It is welcomed. Children who feel emotionally safe are more likely to open up, even about mistakes, fears, and difficult experiences. They learn that their feelings matter, that they are valued, and that their parent is someone they can rely on. Emotional safety transforms silence into dialogue, distance into connection, and fear into trust. It is the single most powerful factor in ensuring that a child's voice is never lost, even when the world outside feels uncertain or overwhelming. Children are naturally curious and eager to share. But when every mistake is met with punishment, criticism, or a lecture, they quickly learn that honesty carries a cost. They begin to calculate the risks of speaking up, and over time, silence becomes the safer option. This isn't about rebellion. It's about self-preservation. Every parent makes mistakes, loses patience, or reacts more strongly than intended. But children internalize these moments in ways that can last a lifetime. They start to connect sharing with negative consequences, and the natural openness that once existed slowly diminishes. The fear of judgment or punishment outweighs the desire to communicate, and their voice retreats behind walls of caution. It's easy for parents to assume that correcting a child or emphasizing consequences is part of good parenting. But children often perceive these moments differently. What feels like guidance to an adult can feel like rejection, criticism, or even emotional threat to a child. When a child shares a problem, a mistake, or a worry, they are placing trust in you. They are exposing a vulnerable part of themselves. If that trust is met with anger, disappointment, or ridicule, it sends a clear message. It's not safe to be honest. Over time, children stop offering glimpses of their inner world, opting instead to protect themselves by keeping thoughts, feelings, and experiences to themselves. The impact of this pattern goes beyond just the immediate relationship. Children who fear negative consequences for being honest often carry this mindset into friendships, school, and later into their own adult relationships. They may struggle to communicate, hide feelings, or avoid seeking help because they have learned that openness is risky. What begins as small omissions or half-truths at home can become a habit of secrecy and self-censorship that affects their emotional growth, self-esteem, and trust in others. The longer this continues, the harder it is to break the cycle, and the child's natural inclination to connect and share becomes suppressed. Mistakes should be framed as opportunities for learning rather than occasions for punishment. Children need to understand that errors are part of growing, that everyone fails sometimes, and that they can approach you without fear of harsh judgment. Responding with empathy and guidance rather than anger helps children feel safe to share both successes and struggles. When a child trusts that mistakes will not lead to humiliation or severe reprimand, their openness increases. They feel empowered to discuss challenges, seek advice, and learn from their experiences in a supportive environment. This is the foundation for long-term communication, confidence, and emotional resilience. Another critical aspect is the consistency of response. Children need to know that honesty is rewarded with understanding, not punishment. When a child shares a difficult truth and is met with calmness, compassion, or constructive guidance, it reinforces the idea that their thoughts and feelings matter. This doesn't mean there are no boundaries or expectations. It means that consequences are fair, measured, and focused on teaching rather than shaming. In this environment, a child is far more likely to share future concerns because they know that trust will not be broken by harsh or unpredictable reactions. Parents also need to recognize that it's not just about reacting to major mistakes. It's about how small moments are handled too. How you respond to minor missteps, emotional outbursts, or misunderstandings signals to your child whether honesty is safe. If every error triggers frustration or criticism, the child internalizes the belief that their thoughts and feelings are inherently risky to share. Conversely, if small mistakes are met with patience and understanding, they learn that openness is valuable, and communication becomes a natural habit rather than a calculated risk. Ultimately, children stop sharing when they believe honesty carries consequences that outweigh the benefits. By reframing mistakes as opportunities for growth, responding consistently with empathy, and emphasizing understanding over punishment, parents can break the cycle of fear and silence. What was once a defensive retreat into secrecy can become a pathway toward trust, connection, and open dialogue. When children feel safe even in their failures, their voices return, and the emotional bridge between parent and child is strengthened, ensuring that silence never becomes the default response to life's challenges. Children are not meant to be controlled. They are meant to be guided, nurtured, and connected with. The more a parent tries to force communication, the more a child resists. Attempts to demand honesty or insist on constant sharing often backfire, creating tension, frustration, and further withdrawal. True openness comes from connection, not control. When a child feels pressured, they may share what they think you want to hear rather than what is true, or they may retreat entirely into silence. The key is to focus on building trust, not enforcing compliance. Connection requires patience, understanding, and a genuine willingness to listen without judgment. Trust is earned through consistent, empathetic actions. Children are incredibly perceptive. They notice when a parent truly cares, and when a parent is simply performing the role of authority. When you show them that their thoughts and feelings matter, and that sharing will not trigger anger, ridicule, or punishment, they begin to open up naturally. This requires parents to actively listen, validate emotions, and respond calmly, even when the topics are uncomfortable or disappointing. Over time, children internalize the understanding that sharing their inner world brings support rather than fear, and silence slowly transforms into dialogue. Connection also thrives on empathy. It's not enough to hear words. You must feel them with your child. When they speak about something difficult, whether it's a worry, a mistake, or a challenge with friends or school, respond in a way that shows understanding. Reflect back their emotions. Acknowledge their feelings without immediately offering solutions or criticism. Statements like, "I see why that upset you," or "It makes sense you feel that way," communicate to a child that their emotions are valid. This validation fosters trust, reinforcing the idea that their inner world is safe to share. It's equally important to allow autonomy while maintaining presence. Children need to feel that their thoughts and experiences are their own, while knowing that you are a consistent, supportive presence. They are more likely to share when they feel a balance between freedom and guidance, when they are encouraged to express themselves without fear of control. Pressuring children to open up can create resentment, but offering opportunities to talk, gentle encouragement, and an environment of curiosity can invite honesty naturally. The child learns that communication is not a requirement. It is a choice that is welcomed and respected. Rebuilding or maintaining this connection requires awareness and intentionality from the parent. Small gestures matter, spending quality time together, showing genuine interest in their day, and giving undivided attention when they speak all communicate value. Equally, avoiding distractions, refraining from judgment, and showing patience in challenging moments reinforce emotional safety. Every positive interaction strengthens the child's willingness to share, while every moment of forced compliance or criticism can reinforce silence. The parent's role is to create an environment where the child wants to open up because it feels safe, not because it is demanded. Ultimately, connection is more powerful than control because it respects the child's inner world and builds mutual trust. Children naturally want to share when they feel heard, understood, and valued. They may still withhold at times, but the bridge of trust ensures that when it matters most, they know they can come to you. Parents who focus on connection over control cultivate resilience, confidence, and open communication, ensuring that silence does not become the default. By prioritizing trust, empathy, and understanding, you show your child that honesty is a gift that strengthens your bond, rather than a burden to bear.